And people start talking to AI girlfriends and shit like that.
They both stuck me in a corner and ignored me for a week.
I can just hear my own father telling me the same thing. Aren't all the schools in Grimsby?
Yeah, pretty much. yeah, pretty much.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
To Superfly sessions in a slightly more cash vibe.
I'm liking this out.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. I'm liking it. It feels a bit more natural. Although it doesn't, usually it feel like a meeting, and now it feels like we're in a pub or something.
It's interesting. Yeah, it does. Doesn't it? Yeah. Just need a pint.
That'd be great. Maybe next time.
It's weird having watched some of these actually now to be part of it. So yeah, it's surreal.
Cool.
It's nice.
Great. So could you just introduce yourself to anyone who might not know who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Paul Savage. I'm head of sales and marketing at Connects Live, which used to be Bonus Arena. And I've been working in Hull now for 7 years.
Amazing.
Since 2017 as the arena was being built.
Cool. So I think from a job perspective, you've got a pretty cool job.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. If I was a young person, like when I was in bands and stuff, that'd have been like, I want that job. Like that is a really, it's a really cool venue. You get some cool artists. It must be a cool job. Sir, how did you what is your journey? I think people would be interested to know that.
Yes, I've had a pretty varied, weird kind of journey to get to where I've got to. I guess it's probably fairly unique in the sense that most people stick to one thing and I've kind of gone all over the place. So yeah. I'm originally from Grimsby, so I'm fairly local. Grew up with mum and dad, little brother. Went to a really rough school in Grimsby, council estate.
Aren't all the schools in Grimsby?
Yeah, pretty much. yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but yeah, most people.
I mean, Hull is posh in comparison.
Yeah,
to
it is a
Grimsby.
bit. Yeah, it is a bit. It's the end of the road. I think the whole Grimsby thing is one of the reasons why I've become I always see myself as a little bit of the underdog.
Yeah,
I think most people from this part of the world kind of do anyway.
Yeah, completely.
And I think that's something that Hull people do as well. Although maybe that's slightly changed. I'm sure we'll come on to that. I went off to university. Wanted to be a journalist. Always wanted to be a journalist. Yeah. So I started this pretty rough council estate school, and then past the 11 plus I went to a grammar school.
Right.
So first person in my family to go to a grammar school. And the two could not have been any more different.
Oh, obviously.
So I went from very rough to quite posh. And I wouldn't say I was rough, and I wouldn't say I was posh.
Yeah.
So I had a bit of I enjoyed school, but I didn't really fit in either.
Character building.
Very much so. And given it was a grammar school where everyone was pushed to go to Oxford and Cambridge and do English, why is a great question.
Yeah.
That back in the very late 90s when I was at school, that was just the way that they pushed things. They wanted everyone to do 4 A levels, 10 GCSEs. Everyone needed to be A-star students, and everyone needed to be a doctor.
That was the focus, wasn't it? Yeah. Even for me, I went to kind of do you call it public school? A non-private school.
Yeah.
Similar, but it was a big school. So
I mean, this was really small. There was 60 kids in a year, all the way through. So did GCSEs, did okay, did A levels, did okay, but not to the standard that they were expecting. Everyone was supposed to be grade A students, and I was a B grade student, so I didn't do bad.
I was the same.
But I want to be a journalist, so I was told by the school that I should go and do English at university, and being the headstrong teenager that I was, pretty much told them to get stuffed, and went and did a journalism degree at an ex-polytechnic. Nice. Which was frowned upon, was told I'd never make anything, the usual thing that you tell kids that are, impressionable at teenage years. Yeah,
if you're not going to become an accountant or a lawyer, then you're screwed out. Yeah.
No, you're not going to be a journalist, go study English. So I went off to university. I went to the University of Central Lancashire in Preston, which was at the time one of only 2 universities in the country that did journalism.
Oh, was it?
It was Sheffield Uni, who I applied to and rejected me. So I had no other choice but to go to Preston. And as it turned out, it was kind of the making of me. So I went off to university, got a degree in journalism.
What was Preston like? Was you guy
Preston,
near Manchester? Manchester.
Yeah. So Manchester was 45 minutes on the train, as was Liverpool. So you're slap bang in the middle of the two. It rained for 3 years solid. which was character building.
Yeah.
But it was a brilliant experience to be able to go out and socialize in a city. I'm from Grimsby. It's a small town.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much small town mentality. It's all I've ever known. To go to Preston at the time was a town, it's now a city. But to go to Manchester and go out and socialise and meet people was just an amazing experience. And it made me, I'd gone from being quite protected and my parents were really good with me, but Grimsby's a small town, you know everybody.
Yeah.
Going into a city where everything was so much bigger and bolder and brighter and brasher, it just, it made me the person that I ended up becoming.
Those two cities as well, it's like music like runs through like the water and
you
like
can start
the blood
to
of
see
people, doesn't it? Yeah.
why I ended up where I ended up.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the mid 90s, as I was growing up as a teenager, you had Oasis versus Blur, you had Britpop, you had grunge, you had amazing formative years of discovering music.
Even the pop music was amazing.
Spice Girls. Yeah. All the girl band, boy band stuff. So you had this amazing, for me, experience of discovering music. And I was discovering music in the same way that, you know, Oasis were coming through and everything else.
Yeah.
So it was this massive melting pot of cultural stuff, even to the point where you had all the Lad Mag stuff.
Yeah.
Everything culturally was very different to how it is now.
Oh,
But it was that experience and those formative years of discovering stuff was amazing. So I went to university, got a degree in journalism, really wanted to be either a sports or a music journalist.
Yeah.
But very quickly realised, as I was doing my 3 years there, that getting into it was near on impossible. It was extremely difficult. So I did work experience.
There's hardly any jobs, and there's a lot of people that want to do it.
Yeah. And I think the one thing I learned a lot at sort of 18 to 21 was the fact that nobody really takes you seriously as a kid. You think you are great because that's just what teenagers think they are, and actually you're not. And so when you go off and you do work experience in various places, they just put you in a corner, ask you to make tea. That was my experience. So I had 2 work experience spells. One was at the Chorley Guardian and one was at the Lancashire Evening Telegraph in Blackburn. And they pretty much changed my life in a really bizarre way because they both stuck me in a corner and ignored me for a week. And it made me realise that if I was ever going to make anything of myself, that I couldn't do it in that traditional way.
Yeah.
So I was in my second year at uni and I thought I'm going to have to do something here to try and stand out from everybody else. So I decided to set up my little music website. So this is before MySpace. This was 2000. So this is before MySpace, before Facebook. The internet was just becoming a thing.
Yeah.
I think the uni halls had dial-up, but they didn't have like proper broadband. You had to go to the libraries to use it. My knowledge of coding and stuff was pretty much minimal. But one of the guys...
Was it MySpace level coding? I remember that. You had to
yeah. It was like HTML, basic. Yeah. I could pretty much add my top 8 and some songs and embed all of that, but that was pretty much it. So I had a friend on my journalism course who could make websites. Looking back, fairly basic ones. So I said to him, can you make me a basic frame of a site where I can write some reviews, interview some bands, just to get myself with a portfolio of work that I could then showcase and try and get myself ahead. So this was year 2000 and I started doing this on the side, and obviously having the opportunity to go to Manchester and Liverpool, bands came through constantly. So you could, every night of the week there was something. And I would literally just message small bands with, I've got this little website, like, can I come and review your gig? Can I review your CD? Whatever that was. And the whole thing took off really, really quickly. And within 2 years, I was getting the best part of 100,000 people a day read it. It was insane. Like, looking back.
What was it called?
It was called Punktastic. It still exists.
Yeah, I do. You know what? I do remember
I have these weird things where I'll meet people and they'll suddenly go, did you do this? And then people remember it from the time. It's weird. So this it was, now everyone has their own like blog or everything. But at the time it was fairly unique.
100%.
Yeah,
there wasn't much like that going on.
No, and as I say, this was like a year or 2 before Facebook started. And if any had come up with that idea, that'd be probably not sat here talking to you now.
It was amazing that the just as a side note, the transition between MySpace, which I thought was like really cool, and then Facebook, which just stripped out all the personality, but then it just made it so easy. It just made the whole job easy. But anyway,
it did. And so that it kind of started from there. I finished uni, got a job straight away as a journalist, as a news reporter at the Scunthorpe Telegraph. So basically, it was come home, pay off my uni debts, and then the idea was to do that for a year or two, and then see what I could do with the music stuff on the side. And the music stuff just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
So were you making any money from that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
There were things with hindsight, I wish I'd done more of. It was never there to monetize, but there were opportunities that I thought I could do things to make some money. So in the end, I started promoting gigs. So I'd hire venues in Leeds, Sheffield, and put on gigs. I had a record label which branched out, and we had distribution in Europe and Japan.
So you had a record label?
Yeah.
What was that called?
It was Fantastic Recordings.
Was it?
Yeah. So the whole thing was all put in together.
So how?
We ended up releasing 20 records.
That is insane.
Yeah, it ended up being it ended up being quite big, and it became too big to do. And I was doing an 8-hour day job, and then literally 8 hours in my spare time doing that as well. Every weekend, go see gigs all over the place. So
it's a very busy life.
It was a very busy life. It was an incredible social life as a 20-year-old, just to be able to go to pretty much any gig in the country for free.
Yeah.
I could pull a favor with anybody. It was really cool. I look back now and I think I didn't take advantage of some of the stuff that I wish I could have done. But I mean,
hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and I didn't know what I was doing. This is I look back now, and I, now working in a proper marketing job in a proper career. I look back now and think if I'd only done this or I'd only done this, actually it could have gone a lot further. But without all of that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah.
So we promoted, me and some friends promoted gigs in Leeds. So back in 2000, I think it was 2005. One of Bring Me the Horizon's first shows was a show I co-promoted, which at the time, they're just another band on a flyer.
Yeah, with very, very floppy hair.
They were very. I remember them being very aggressive. It was at a pub called the Pack Horse.
Pack Horse. Yeah.
Which I don't think.
Was that in Leeds?
Yeah, which I don't think exists anymore. There's the Cardigan Arms. We did some stuff above the pub in there, which still exists, I think. We did stuff in Joseph's Well, which doesn't exist anymore.
Joseph's Well was really
amazing
cool
venue. Yeah, it was in the basement.
Yeah.
We did some stuff in there. Corporation Sheffield, Lebanon in Sheffield. I did Camden Barfly. I did the Underworld in Camden. God. That was the biggest gig we did. It was
a lot of these
900
venues gone,
people.
Aren't they? Yeah.
A lot of these venues have gone. Yeah, a lot of these venues have gone. And it was really stressful. But it was honestly living the best life. Yeah. Every weekend was so much fun. Just discovering new artists and new bands. And the more we did, the more people were attracted to it. So we would get record labels come to us saying, do you want to interview? I remember, again, from the time, we had an email from a publicist of, I've got this really cool new band from America. They're coming over and doing their first UK tour. Do you want to interview them? And I was like, yeah, sure. Who are they? And they came back and it was Fall Out Boy. So I was the first person in the UK to interview Fall Out Boy in person in the UK.
And where did you interview?
On their tour bus, which was basically just a 8-seater.
I bet it was.
Van.
Yeah.
So that was their first tour. They played at the Cockpit in Leeds. Yeah. And on the same bill I'm certain it was Panic at the Disco supported them. They had loads of tech problems. And then a few weeks later, Newfound Glory was there with Paramore supporting them when Hayley was a little baby with the parents there. So I was part of something which became very quick in the mainstream, which obviously helped what I was doing because the music I was covering, all that
blew
stuff,
up, didn't it?
Yeah, massive. Yeah. And I benefited from the fact that all this stuff blew up massive. So the bigger the scene of music got, the bigger influence I seemed to suddenly have as a voice. And we'd get people asking us to sponsor tours. We sponsored stages at Slam Dunk Festival for about the first 4 or 5 years. It was all just completely insane and really, really cool. So I did my journalism job alongside it and then realised that newspaper journalism was not for me anymore. And in 2000, so I did that for 6 years alongside the music stuff. And then I went and did some PR work for council and some politicians, which was completely the opposite of the music stuff.
That is the complete opposite.
So I was doing the music stuff on the side, working for some politicians for the day, and I enjoyed it in a sense, but I was blinded by the money. It was double the money.
Yeah.
And so I did that for 3 years, and then realised that was not the career for me. I enjoyed it, but not to the level I wanted to do. So I'd got to being 30. This was 2010.
So at this point, did you still have Punktastic?
Yeah, still had it. Yeah. So I got to 2010 and I'd been doing it for 10 years and it was either a full-time job or ditch it. And I'd got to a point where I was getting married.
Yeah.
We were thinking about having kids, and I didn't know if I could take it any further than it got.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for a long time, and someone came in and offered me quite a lot of money for it, the whole thing. So I sold it.
Yeah.
And it's still going today.
Yeah.
But I just stopped. And then literally 2 months later, there was a job advert for a marketing manager for a theatre in Scunthorpe. So I thought, well, I've got a great body of work. It just needs somebody that can understand that what I'd done and how I did it. So I went for an interview and got the job. And that was 14 years ago, and I've worked in venues ever since.
Wow.
And I'd pretty much got the job off the stuff that I'd done on the side. So that's kind of that proof the side hustle works.
Yeah. Or it serves a purpose, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whether you make it your full-time job or whether it actually influences your career, like I always think when we've kind of hired people, you're always looking for that extra bit, that more that's the thing that makes you interesting.
Yeah,
basically.
it is, and I think there's so much you learn from stuff outside of work. It's like applying your life experience to what you do. And I had no formal qualifications in marketing. I had no experience in marketing in terms of an actual day job until I got a job as a marketing manager. But I had done, if you can release a band's EP and have it released across Europe and Japan and have it in the Japanese equivalent of HMV, you can market a ballet show. Do you know what I mean? So applying all the stuff that I'd kind of learned over a long period of time just made that transition into doing this as a full-time thing. I realized like during the 2000s that a career in music was all I ever wanted. I thought I'd wanted to be a sports journalist. I'm a big sports fan, football fan. Yeah. And I thought that was what I wanted to do as a kid. And I remember being like 11, 12, 13 and being like, I'm going to be a newspaper journalist. I'm going to be like a football journalist. Yeah. But once I got into music, when I got that bug at like 15, 16 years old, and I'd watch Top of the Pops and I'd see all these amazing bands on TV, that was it. I wanted to be in a band, but I was never talented enough. Like I could play guitar, like basic guitar, but I couldn't sing, couldn't write music. I couldn't pick it up by ear. I had friends who could just listen to a song and play it. And it used to infuriate me because I couldn't do it. Yeah. But I realised pretty quickly that you can still have a career in music. You just don't have to be on the stage.
Yeah, of course.
There's so much stuff that happens around it.
Yeah.
In fact, there's more stuff that happens around it than there is on it.
Sometimes being on the stage isn't overly glamorous as you think as well.
I've been on the stage, I think, twice. In fact, I found someone sent me a YouTube video of me singing badly from about 2006. Thankfully, it was filmed on a potato, so you can't really hear me.
Nice, yeah.
But I can't sing a note, and so
that doesn't help.
No, but I knew I wanted to be involved in some way, and so for me, it was just a case of how can I find a way into it properly. And I didn't want to move. I'd got family, and I didn't want to move to Manchester or London, which is where most of the opportunities happen. So I thought at some point I was going to have to give up on that dream and then just live the boring life of a career of doing something different. And then literally this theatre job came up, and 5 years of doing that, and the next thing I'm opening what was Bonus Arena, and doing living the dream.
Now that you've told that story, that job that you've got now almost seems tailor-made for you.
It is the perfect job.
Yeah.
It's funny, I was talking to my mum and dad about this 2 weeks ago, and they asked me, when do you think you'd move to the next thing? But I'd need something that's exciting. Yeah. No offense to people that market boilers, but I can't think of anything worse. I have, for me, it's like the passion of standing in a room with, we had Bowling for Soup here last week, and there was the best part of 4,000 people in a room. And I don't really know a lot of Bowling for Soup songs, I know a couple. But there were 4,000 people just absolutely having the time of their life. Yeah. And there is a job satisfaction in standing in a room that you've helped get those 4,000 people in that space, having this amazing time that I've helped do. People remember that gig forever, for months. I remember gigs that I was 18, 19, 20 years on.
Oh, I do as well.
Yeah. And they impact on you in so many different ways. Music is this... Funnily enough, my daughter said something on the way to school this morning. She said, we were talking about, I've just given her access to my Spotify account so she can listen to anything she wants. Yeah.
Have you set up a family account?
I've done the duo, so it's now not influencing. My Spotify thing at the end of the year is always like, why is that Disney song on there?
Yeah. Just let it go, gets into your top
And she said
100.
this morning, I was like, what are you listening to today? And she said, I'm listening to the Arctic Monkeys. I was like, oh, for a 10-year-old to discover them, that's pretty cool. And she turned around and she went, yeah, Dad, music's life. And I was like,
Fucking hell.
That's, pretty profound for a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
But she's right.
Yeah.
The music and it's the soundtrack to the best times of your life, the worst times of your life. Everything that fits into my life, I can remember a song that will, or an album or an artist.
Relate.
Yeah. And so I just can't. There will be a point when I don't want to do it anymore, but I think I've got the coolest job. It's just, you can stand in a room and just be part of. It's not religion, but it feels like a worship where I'm talking Sleep Token now, but
yeah.
you can be in a space where everybody is transfixed on one thing, and it can be like a preacher delivering a sermon, and it is just a songwriter singing a song, and it's just a feeling that most jobs I don't think can give you.
Yeah, it's that energy when there's in the room as well, isn't it? Like there's something that you can't replicate.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. And I'm big football fan. Go to games, and you can partly recreate it for 30 seconds if your team scores in the last minute you win a game.
Yeah.
But this can be 90 minutes of an artist belting out their deepest thoughts, and you connect with it on a level which is just something completely different. And I think ever since the age of 15, 16, I remember, the Blur Oasis stuff and it being on the front page of all the papers. And that just for me triggered just this connection with music of how deep it can impact you. Even just like my music tastes are extremely varied and have changed a lot over the years, but just how something can just trigger something in your mind and impact you on a really deep level for such a long time.
Oh yeah, like you said, the soundtrack to your life. I think the most profound moments of my life, I can, bad and good, I can relate to with some kind of song.
Yeah. And it's like nothing else.
Yeah.
You can still hear a song now that, the way in which we consume music's changed so much. When I was 15, 16, the only way really you heard new music was the radio or Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
You couldn't discover new music in the way that you do now. And my daughter will be like, we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, it made me laugh. She told me about this really exciting new band she'd found called My Chemical Romance.
Yeah.
Which, bless her, she's finding stuff through YouTube or through Spotify or through influencers, soundtracking stuff. And she thinks it's new because she's obviously not discovered it before.
Well, it is new to her.
Yeah. And so, she was telling me about this song she just heard called Teenagers, and then I introduced her to the Black Parade album, and now she's dressing like a little emo. Nice. Which I'm trying to teach her young. But
you've raised a fellow mosher.
Yes, I'm trying to. I just need to take her to a gig. Just not to scare her off. But it's that emotion that it invokes in people. Just it can be an acoustic artist with a guitar. It can be an orchestra. I mean, some of the best music John Williams has written orchestral scores for films. Which I was really lucky to see an orchestra do an evening of John Williams back 10 years ago.
Did you? Yeah.
And you forget how many, he's Indiana Jones,
iconic.
Jaws, Star Wars, Schindler's List, E.T., all this amazing music, which, I wouldn't necessarily go home and listen to when I'm getting ready to go out or, in the car on the way to school. But they're just incredible, emotive pieces of music that you just, as soon as you hear Jurassic Park, know immediately it's from the film.
Absolutely iconic.
And so
Hans Zimmer as well.
Again, absolutely incredible. So it doesn't really matter what the music is. Music has this way of just inspiring. And I can't imagine life without it.
Well, I think we could talk about that for hours. So maybe let's move on to based on everything that you've said, I'm sure you've been involved with multiple kind of marketing campaigns, and you've been with having your own blog and stuff like that, you would have probably have had to kind of push some boundaries, and now you're in a marketing role where you need to kind of be a little bit different. What would you say that the most successful campaigns that you've been involved with, and how they came to fruition, I suppose?
I think because of my background in being a journalist, I always try and approach stuff with that kind of storyteller element to it. I'm not a technical marketer, not a theoretical marketer. And sometimes the best stuff that I've been involved with has just been gut feeling. You know, you
Yeah.
get that thing in your gut where you just think, this is something that would work really well.
Yeah.
So one thing that I was involved with a few years ago, which was again, you know, side hustle project, was for my sins, Grimsby Town season ticket holder. So had a lot of, you know, I've a lot of misery over the years, a lot of relegations. Authentic misery. Yeah, not just being from Grimsby's bad enough, but also supporting a really crap football team. And we'd been relegated out of League Two into the conference in 2009-10, and we'd been there a few years. And we got to Wembley in 2014-15, the playoff final, lost to Bristol Rovers on penalties. And we were just distraught on the way home. You know, that whole, you've battled for 50 games in a season. It's terrible.
It's like when, I know it's not quite the same, but when England lose in a big...
Yeah,
like,
and it's...
we're used to the pain of being English.
So Grimsby have been awful for years. And I was sat with a friend of mine, Dan, on the bus home. Bus is silent, and we were just discussing about how Bristol Rovers literally had a better striker than we had. This guy called Matt Taylor had scored 30 goals that season. And we just said, you know, wouldn't it be great if we'd just got a bit more budget to buy a better player? So we started kicking this idea around on the 4-hour bus home of, you know, well, why don't we just try and raise some money? You know, 30 grand might get us enough to cover the salary of a better striker. So we went back to the Grimsby Town Supporters Trust at the time and suggested this idea of, you know, why don't we just try and do a crowdfunder to raise some money? So we went to the club. Club thought it was a good idea. You know, we set a target of raising 30 grand. So
why would they not think it's a good idea?
Well, they just saw it as free money.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think they actually saw it for what we saw it as, which was actually, let's buy a better footballer.
Yeah, they were like, well, we're just getting free money to buy a better footballer. Why would we not do this?
Yeah. So we came up with this idea for a crowdfunder, and we invited local businesses to offer stuff. So there's a local fish and chip shop who, the club were really good about it to start with. So they offered people the chance to go buy a meal at this fish and chip shop, and some of the players and the manager were there. So you could, you know, it was quite an expensive thing.
That's cool.
But there were loads of really cool stuff. Somebody could buy a place on the team photo. Somebody bought a squad number, so they're actually listed in the official EFL squad list. We had all sorts of really weird stuff. And the idea was to raise 30 grand in a month between the end of the season and the start of the next one. We raised 30 grand in the first 30 minutes. And everything we planned.
How did that take off like that?
So we'd announced it and got the press on board.
You got the press on board?
Yeah. And they just thought it was a really quirky, funny thing. Some Grimsby Town supporters are fed up being shit, basically. Yeah. So just like, that's cool.
Yeah.
We ended up raising 120 grand in a month. We had to completely redo the whole, like, we'd got a list of like 30 different pledges that people could put into.
Yeah.
It ended up being like 100. I mean, there was one kid who'd got like, he'd donated a £5 and it was his pocket money. And he was basically like, I've been watching Grimsby for like 3 years. God. I'm 8, but I really want to do stuff.
That's so cute.
We had somebody who was going to WrestleMania that year who offered to write signs. And he was camera side, ringside. So he'd put like GTFC till I die, and that was shown at WrestleMania, and there was other stuff as well. It's just like
that is so random.
Yeah, and I've got pictures of all this. I might have to do some stuff on LinkedIn again because I haven't mentioned it for a while.
If you've got any pictures, we'll put them on.
Yeah. It was just amazing. Grimsby in 1989, Grimsby got to the FA Cup 5th round, and the club decided to make inflatable fish to sell as like a merch thing.
Yeah.
It's called Harry the Haddock. And there's this really cool picture. It was on Match of the Day at the time of 8,000 Grimsby fans, all with these fish. So they hadn't been remade for 25 years. So we remade them and then sold them at profit. So we made all this money, and the club bought a striker, a guy called Omar Bogle. They bought him from Solihull. I think they paid about 50 grand. And he scored 20 goals that season.
Did he?
Yeah.
So it worked.
Yeah, we got to the
20 goals.
We got to the playoff final at Wembley. Omar scored twice. We won.
Shit, that is ace.
Yeah. And so Grimsby got promoted off the back of.
So it actually worked.
Yeah. It caused the club were very supportive of it at first.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just me by any means. Like, we came up with this idea, two or three of us, and then a group of about 20 people put all this together.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
You know, we printed T-shirts. We were
So
selling
did
them all
you
around
just
the world.
do this off your own back because you were a fan?
Yeah. So there's a group of people who then clubbed together, and the whole community came together. It was amazing. I mean, it made The Guardian. We did Radio 5. I remember on the day we finished it and we'd raised this money, Moira Stewart read it out on the BBC World News Network of, you know, Grimsby Town supporters have raised 120 grand. It was surreal. It was weird. And then 9 months later, we were at Wembley. We beat Forest Green 3-1. The third goal came in injury time in front of the Grimsby fans. I cried. I'm not going to lie. It was like the most emotional outpouring of everything. There was 20,000 Grimsby fans there. It was just...
Oh, wow.
It was an out-of-body experience. It was incredible. Yeah. And then it became a bit fractured. The club felt we were putting a bit too much pressure on them, particularly as they'd started really well and they got to Wembley and there was this expectation that we'd get promoted. And ultimately we did. I ended up falling out with the club over stuff and it ended a bit sour, which is a bit of a shame. But the club the next year ended up selling Omar Bogle for 1.5 million. So so what actually happened was we gave them 100 grand to buy a footballer, which they then flipped for 1.5 million and got promoted. So, you know, it worked out fairly well.
That's a decent marketing campaign. That is good return on investment.
It was a good return on investment. Yeah. 3 years later, they got relegated again.
Yeah.
So they ended up going back down. So they, you know,
3 years though.
It was 3 years. And then we got promoted again 2 years ago. So I would probably say that was the most successful thing I've been in.
Yeah. Where are they now? Are they in the
We
Football
are
League?
third from bottom of League Two.
League Two? Yeah.
And we play Forest Green, bizarrely, again on Saturday, who are 1 position and 2 points below us. So if we win, we might be okay. And if we lose, then it's looking a bit shit.
Oh, no.
So
do you go every Saturday? Well,
I've been a season ticket holder for over 30 years. I go with my dad. Me and my dad use it as a thing
Father,
we do
son
every
bonding. That's nice, isn't it?
It's really good. So I'd say that's probably the most successful thing I've been involved in. But I like getting involved in weird like marketing campaigns. When we first opened the arena here in Hull, we did this thing called the Grand Flush. So we needed a way to get people into the building to test the facilities. Because obviously when you've got a gig on, you've got, you know, 200 or 300 people potentially flushing toilets at the same time or turning on the taps.
Right,
it's really weird stuff that obviously you need to test. So we put a call out for people to come and flush the toilets, and we called it the Grand Flush. And we needed 150 people to literally flush the toilets at the same time. And we had 700 people volunteer to do it. So we got the media involved and we had like European media. It was just a weird thing. And literally somebody over town, I went 1, 2, 3 flush. And we flushed the toilets. Everything worked fine. And we got loads of publicity off the back of it. So I like just little weird things like that. You know, I'm a big fan of doing stuff or trying to do stuff that is a bit different.
Yeah.
You know, marketing is such a crowded marketplace.
Yeah, it is.
You know, you walk down the high street.
Especially with social media and the internet.
Yeah.
You're constantly battling for people's attention, aren't you?
I had a conversation with someone quite a few years ago who was complaining about the fact that we hadn't got any posters in shop windows. So I asked them to walk down high street, and this was prior to COVID, walk down high street and then come back and tell me how many things you remember you see. And you couldn't remember anything because it's just your mind is overloaded with information. And in the digital age, it's exactly the same. You know, you scroll down Facebook, you'll see more ads than you'll see friends' posts. If you're on the Daily Mail or whatever news website, you're just bombarded with ads and stuff. And so you've got to try and stand out. And by no means are we perfect at doing that, but we try and think, how can you do something which is going to be different to what everybody else is doing? And that's a daily challenge. It's a daily challenge trying to stay one step ahead of the game. It's a daily challenge in trying to capture people's attention, keep people interested. You know, there are times where the venue might not have many new announcements. There are times where we might not have many shows. Yeah. You're vying for attention against other venues and other leisure things, football or rugby, or, you know, there's only a finite amount of money out there. So, yeah, trying to come up with ideas which interest people is what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, great. So we're obviously on camera and being recorded, but I think there'll be a load of things that you can probably say and a load of things that you probably can't say, especially with it being in the entertainment industry. But I suppose, is there any like cool, quirky stories that you've got? It doesn't have to necessarily be at Connecting Live, but throughout your career that people might find interesting that they might not know about certain things. Little secrets.
Yeah, some stuff I definitely can't talk about. I don't want to get sued.
Definitely not no names anyway.
Yeah, definitely not no names. I mean, there's people always think. I mean, we've actually had this conversation before because I've shown you around, but people always think backstage is always really interesting, and it's really never is.
No.
But we've had a few people that have brought weird and wonderful items. So,
what's the weirdest item?
Jack White's jukebox.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so Jack White, when he came in 2018 or 19, brought a proper jukebox with 7 inches in it.
That must be so heavy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And an assistant or somebody obviously brought it up, and it was filled with 7 inches of whatever he was listening to. I mean, it's you know, if you can tour the world and take your jukebox with you, why wouldn't you do?
Absolutely.
I'd settle for my Spotify playlist, but you know, when you're as cool as Jack White, I guess you can get away with it. And so he brought his jukebox, but we've had people who bring like internal decorators, and you know, people who will come in and decorate the dressing room so it's in the right style for particular artists, whether that's colours or smells or furniture or that kind of thing. I guess when you're on tour for such a long time, you want things to feel like home. And so if you're at a level...
I completely get that. Yeah, because it can be a lonely place if you're touring away from home for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very often that I get to go backstage. We tend to obviously keep people to what they're doing.
You're in the safe zone.
Stay
in the safe zone.
But whenever you walk back, you'll just see people on laptops using FaceTime or Teams or whatever just to talk to people back home. And so, you know, there's a period where it is very kind of quiet and people are just conversing with family.
It's not the 60s anymore, is it?
It's not the 60s. No, there's
or
no...
the 70s, or the 80s, or the 90s.
Yeah, I think, I don't know whether it's, you know, we've had artists that have stayed late and drank but always been really well behaved. So we've been quite lucky with that. I mean, there's been occasions where we've had to, somebody asked for more sofas than we'd got, so we rang the Holiday Inn and said, any chance we can borrow some sofas? And then we had a team of people run across the A63 with sofas on their backs.
Oh god.
So the CCTV footage of some guys running with
just
some
like
sofas.
Running across that bridge is just like
it would have been a weird sight.
It's like the Chuckle Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, you know, people wanting different coloured towels to the towels we've got, and we've had to run out to, you know, a pound shop and buy a load of towels. But most of the time, it's fairly simple stuff. You know, most artists want to come in, probably wash their clothes if they've been on tour, because they've been on tour, they might want to shower. Some artists, you know, the comedians tend to arrive 20 minutes before they go on stage, literally walk on, perform, walk off. We've had a couple of artists. There's one I won't name, but in case it gets me into trouble. But he and his band were playing on stage.
You've already gendered the person, so
well, that narrows it down. That narrows it down a little bit.
I've got a 50% chance of guessing
it
now.
He and his band were playing. It was the last song, and the last song had an outro of about 3 minutes. So the guy waves on stage, says thank you very much, walks off stage, literally straight out the back door, straight into a waiting car. He was probably, I don't know, halfway to Leeds before the band had actually finished the song.
Wow. That is a severe hatred of Hull, that is.
I think he was probably just wanted to, he's just had enough.
I just want to go to bed.
So yeah, most of the time it's not as exciting as people think it is. But obviously, you know, the gigs themselves, we've had some absolutely magical stuff. I mean, you know,
you have,
Noel Gallagher has been twice. That was amazing. Just to see, you know, whether you like Oasis, whether you like Noel solo stuff, just a musical icon on the stage. I mean, we had Debbie Harry and Blondie, Bob Dylan. We've had all sorts of amazing stuff, and there's been times where it's kind of like pinch me that I've been involved in. You know, I look back and think I'm privileged to be in the position I'm in, and I'm privileged to be involved in making memories for people. And that sounds really corny whenever I say that, but I've been to gigs that I've remembered forever.
Yeah,
I remember
it's true.
Going to stuff in the late 90s. I saw the Foo Fighters at Manchester Academy. It would have been the Colour and the Shape tour, I think. So, you know, it's literally probably year 2000, 99, around that point, 1,800 people. And I remember that gig. Yeah. And I look back on Setlist FM's like the best tool, because I can't remember the songs they played, but I look back and I'm like, oh my God, they played that song.
Setlist FM?
Not heard of it?
No.
So basically it's an online tool where people can fill in the set lists of shows that they've been to.
What?
And it goes back for like 30 years.
That's it.
Yeah. So you can type in a band, and literally there are some bands who you can see every set list they've ever played in every gig.
To kind of trigger that memory in your head.
Yeah. So
Wow.
and it's great for finding support artists. So I've been to gigs where I remember going to see the gig, but I've not remembered the support artist.
Yeah.
So I again back in the late 90s, early 2000s saw a band called Three Colours Red at Sheffield Uni.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize at the time was that the opening band was Muse.
What?
Yeah, on Muse's first tour.
Yeah.
Don't remember it at all, but yeah, the Muse were the support. So sometimes they look back and I'm like, shit, I really wish like I'd remembered that, you know, that element of it. And it's funny, I went to Leeds Festival the year that Coldplay opened the smallest tent.
Wow.
I had no idea who Coldplay were. The tent was probably, it might have been rammed, but I look at some of these old festival posters with like, you know, Foo Fighters were opening the main stage or whoever it was, really wishing that I'd gone back and been able to see some of the stuff that I'd missed.
That seems weird, Foo Fighters opening the main stage, even because like,
I don't think
girls in Nirvana.
Yeah, but I don't think like commercially they were huge probably until Monkey Wrench, the video. So in those early days, it was Dave Grohl. I think as well, you look at some of those festival bills from the late 90s, early 2000s, they were completely stacked. I look at festival bills now, and they're not for me.
Yeah, so
you know,
well, the musical landscape's changed.
It has, and I completely understand why the people that go to festivals now are, you know, a lot younger. They're more internet savvy. They're YouTube, you know, TikTok friendly and everything else. But I look at a lot of, I mean, I guess my music taste is more heavier than lighter stuff. I look at Download, and it still is what I would, you know, appreciate going to. But I look at Reading and Leeds, and it's not for me anymore. Yet in the early 2000s, I went religiously every year. And saw some, you know, amazing artists.
Wow, Ace, that's really cool. So, I think the last thing that I was going to chat about is I often talk about parenting. I've got 2 young kids, but you've had this incredible career, and you've also got a daughter, haven't you?
Yeah.
And how old is she?
She's 10, nearly 11.
10, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're well versed.
Yeah, in dad life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how have you found weaving that into your life throughout those 10 years?
Yeah, it's been a massive challenge. You know, I got divorced 8 years ago, so my daughter was 3.
Right.
So being able to solo parent, I have my daughter 50% of the time, you know, and I get on well with my ex-wife now.
Yeah.
But you know, as these things happen, they're difficult.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Breakups are horrible.
And again, I mean, there's songs I can't listen to because they soundtrack that whole period.
Yeah.
And music's a great healer as well. There's stuff that makes me think of better times in that period.
Yeah.
But all I've ever tried to do, especially with Martha, my daughter, is make sure that she understands the importance of music, and she understands the importance of the live entertainment industry, and that could be as a makeup artist for a Strictly dance show, or it could be she's really in a way that I'm not. She's really artistic. She can draw incredibly well for someone of her age. So I've tried to encourage
creative then.
Very creative. And I've tried to build that into everything we do
and encourage that.
Because I think being creative solves so many problems in life.
And in our era, it was. You can't really be creative because it doesn't really serve you. What are you going to be, an artist?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, she's talked about, she'll watch YouTube. We've had this conversation before. During half term a couple of weeks ago, she asked me for the very first time, can I go buy some makeup? So we went off to Primark and I gave her some money and she bought some stuff.
The beginning.
Yeah, I know. And I'm shit scared how this is all going to develop when she's a teenager. But she went, I had to go on, it was during a working day. So we went off, we came back. And then I said to her, look, I've got an hour, I've got to have a meeting. Why don't you just, you know, look at a YouTube tutorial of how to, I've never used makeup. I haven't got a clue. And so have a look and see how they do it. And she did. And having those kind of tools now in a way that we didn't have them when we were kids, it's about moderating what they get access to, but also encouraging the use of that. There are really good there are a lot of idiots on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff out there that I wouldn't want her to see, but also there's a lot of stuff out there that will help and encourage her to be creative in various different ways.
Yeah.
So I've not yet managed to take her to a gig. Well, I was hoping I could take her to the Olivia Rodrigo shows, partly because I wanted to go.
Yeah.
But it sold out far too quickly, and
right.
it's not in any of our venues. But there'll be something soon, hopefully, that I can get her to.
Yeah.
But we sing in the car.
She's approaching that age as well, where music will mean.
Yeah.
Like you feel things hard in your early teens, don't you? So music becomes that soundtrack then, I think.
And
doesn't it? Very much so.
even during lockdown, she would have been 7 when lockdown started, and so she was still in that kind of child, like the Blippies and the Blueies, and with a lot of music.
Well.
Yeah. You got
things on repeat.
Every age brings a different
it does,
challenge and a different thing. And so we'd listen to a lot of Disney, watch a lot of Disney films, listen to the soundtracks, and it's kind of developed from there. So I've always been really keen on expressing emotion through music or learning through that. Because again, when I was 14, 15, that was Oasis versus Blur, and that, if it hadn't have been for those type of moments in cultural history, probably wouldn't be sat here now.
Yeah.
Music became such a massive thing in the 90s with the whole Britpop thing.
Oh, it did.
That whether you liked Britpop or not, it just...
Music and football was just massive.
It was. And it still is. I mean, it's different to how it was, but it still is. So, trying to get... I still go to as many gigs as I can. That whole... And it's weird going from stadium gigs to little gigs. I try and do the small club stuff as much as I can, the bigger stuff. But as a parent, trying to encourage creativity, trying to encourage her to listen to music. She can discover what she likes. I don't mind if it's pop music or whatever.
Yeah.
As long as it's real and authentic.
Yeah.
Because it served me so well. In everything that I've done, and has got me into places that I could never dream of ever getting to. If you'd have said to 15-year-old me that just watching an episode of Top of the Pops would ultimately lead me into doing music stuff full time, A, I'd never have believed you, and B, I'd have thought that was really fucking cool.
Yeah, it is.
And just having the opportunity to do it for a living has just been, something that I feel very, very privileged to do.
The dream come true.
Yeah, and we've got I'm not quite sure when this will go out, but we've got Bill Bailey in Hull tonight, who actually opened the venue in Scunthorpe that I first started doing. He was the very first artist we did. And I interviewed him on the stage, and it's funny because I'd interviewed him in portrait mode on my iPhone, which at the time was just the absolute no. Everything was, was not that way.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's full circle now. Everyone does everything in portrait. So every
'Cause
time I see the
everyone's looking
picture,
at it on their phones.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, I knew I was ahead of the curve. So we've got Bill Bailey tonight, and I'll be there to see it start, and then I'll scoot off. And just seeing, the best part of 3,000 people walk in the door with this expectation of being entertained and laughing and having a great time. Still gives me a buzz even after all these years. And I think I'll know when I don't get that buzz anymore that it's time to pack it in.
I think you will. And that's a good time to end. Well, thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks for coming on.
You.
Right, so we're going to go quick fire again. Quick fire, but there's no time limit apart from there is 36 minutes left on the camera, so there is a time limit.
There is a time,
yeah. 35 now. 35.
Oh no, quick. Who's going first? Me?
You.
Okay. Right. It's a bit of an open question, and I don't think anybody has the answer to it, but what do you think social media will look like in 5 years' time?
Jesus fucking Christ. Well, I suppose it's kind of always moved with technology, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So I think TikTok and Instagram Reels has become popular because the technology and the internet, the internet speeds have allowed it, and the phone technology. So I suppose it's whatever happens within kind of internet speeds and technology, and maybe even AI.
Yeah.
Like
AI always gets into conversation with it now.
But I suppose if I don't know really. Obviously, video is still going to be massive and even more so.
I always think like video is so huge. What can you get that's better than video, live streams? How is it going to get better?
Could you get like some off like Star Wars or something, where it's like a hologram?
Yeah.
And you're talking to a hologram.
Yeah.
Maybe we could have like someone who's not actually here, like sat in their office, sat there.
Just sat there.
And we're like, yeah, cool,
Maybe,
marketing.
Yeah. But yeah, I always think about that because video is just so... Like, it's intelligent. It's an intelligent thing. How are you going to get more intelligent than that? It's crazy, but...
I just think it has to have something to do with AI because all the companies are spending so much money on it, and it's such a big thing.
Yeah.
So then it's maybe, does it become less social as more people become more introverts and
I don't know.
and people
Never
start
thought about
talking
that.
to AI girlfriends and shit like that?
Oh, yeah. I've heard of stuff like that already. We don't need that.
We
That
don't.
needs to go away.
The mind boggles. Have you watched that TV show on Channel 4?
What about?
It's what's she called? Alice Levine, and it's like a sex. I didn't think I'd start talking about this. it's like a sex documentary, and one of those is she covers like technology, and it is so weird. It's almost like a virtual. One of them is like a virtual reality brothel,
Oh my God.
and
I've seen
it's
something
a bit
similar
gross.
though. I've seen something definitely similar. Don't know if it's that like Olivia Atwood thing. Have you seen that? She does like series on different weird things like that.
No, I
Yeah.
haven't watched that one.
Anyways, yeah. Really weird.
It is, but it's interesting the way that it's actually becoming like almost socially acceptable and
Yeah.
to like. So I do think the AI girlfriend, AI boyfriend.
Yeah. Well,
I
you
think
think
more
over the
so.
years how many things have come socially acceptable? That's probably going to be one of them. In 5 years' time, it's probably going to be like, I'm just going to tell my mate what's going on.
Have you watched that film Hair?
No, I've heard of it though.
So that's like it's almost like a Black Mirror full length episode where this dude basically falls in love with his phone.
Oh, so weird.
And he basically just falls in love with like an AI girl, like AI girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil it, but it's really
I want to
interesting.
watch it now.
Yeah, it's
weird.
really good. It is really good because it's got Joaquin Phoenix, who's amazing.
Is that an actor?
Joaquin, yeah,
That was just a random noise you was making.
yeah. I've got like some kind of like Tourette's or something.
What was that?
And Scarlett Johansson's the voice as well. She's got
right.
She's got a nice voice.
I'll have to watch it then.
It helps that you know kind of what she looks like as well.
Yeah.
But anyway. Anyway, let's move on. So we chatted about this before we came into this room. It's maybe quite a difficult question to answer.
Oh, which one?
So what brands are you genuinely interested in hearing from? So say you're looking you've seen an ad or you've looked on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
What brand, like what companies do you actually want? Are you actually interested in hearing what they've got to say?
I think even if I don't necessarily buy from them, obviously once I see a sponsored ad or something pop up, I immediately will take interest in a brand, say for example Gymshark. As soon as I see that there's an ad pops up and I see it sponsored, it's not one of them that's sponsored and you just keep scrolling because it's being paid for basically. It's one of them where I'll stop and I'll see what they're up to and see if it's like, I don't know, good enough, just see what's going on basically. So Gymshark is very much one of them, I think, because they show a lot of behind the scenes and I kind of feel like, I think their whole persona, you're meant to feel like you're part of their family, you're part of their company if you buy from them.
And do you think, does that influence your buying decision?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think just feeling like you've got the product from them. Obviously, it's not necessarily from them; it's from a factory. But just that's the whole. Sorry, that's the whole marketing. Sorry for anyone listening.
Yeah, I've said whacking.
Yeah,
and you're just whacking the mic.
Whacking the
Oh no!
It's falling apart anyway. Yeah, so Gymshark is a massive one. Any more?
So you mentioned Asda.
I did mention Asda.
So you buy a lot from Asda.
I do buy a lot from Asda. I do think Asda's got very good marketing though. Did you see their Christmas advert with Michael Bublé?
No.
You didn't?
No, yeah, I did. No, I did. Yeah.
They opened the door and Michael Bublé was in there and then he started singing to them all and stuff. And he was the manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like when a company really focuses on the marketing and presents their team really well. Obviously, Asda's quite difficult because there's a lot of Asda employees.
Asda's, I suppose supermarkets, they've got such a captive audience, don't they?
Yeah.
Especially like your Tesco, your Asda, and what's the other one? Morrison's, I'd say.
Yeah.
They must be the biggest three.
Yeah. I would say.
Yeah.
I think it's dependent on obviously where you live,
Mm.
and I think it's also dependent on if you have trust in them, and their marketing comes into place as well. Because say I go to Leeds, for example, I'll look for the Asda, or I'll go to Tesco's if, I don't know, I've seen something in there that's nice or whatever. But for example, Sainsbury's, you don't see much marketing. Well, I don't see much marketing from them, and I just feel like I don't know what's going on in there, so I'll just leave them be.
You know what I think? Well, it's probably a big thing within supermarkets. It's because they're so visually location, you know where the supermarkets are, don't you? They almost don't need to market themselves from a customer perspective.
No.
But they focus on the retention, don't they?
Yeah.
So they're all about these points apps now.
Yeah.
And Asda are actually really good at that. Their rewards app is great, and it kind of does lock me in a bit.
Yeah.
I'm a big Asda fan.
Yeah, well, I downloaded it because on my first week, you and Lucy were talking about it. And I was like, I need this app.
This is great.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've got that now. But yeah, can't think of any more. I don't know, another one.
Well, Gymshark, it's fine.
Gymshark is just up there for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
They just do it well. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. I don't go to the gym anymore, so that's an issue. Okay, your turn.
Oh yeah, it is my turn. I'm just waiting for you to give me a question.
No.
Right, okay. What would be your best advice to someone who is going for their first marketing job / interview?
I think if you can, and this is quite hard, I think, because nerves sometimes get the better of you.
Yeah.
But it's to try and just be yourself and just show who you are as a person.
Yeah.
I think we were speaking to Paul just before, weren't we, in the office, and he was saying if you've got to interview level, you can probably do the job.
Yeah.
It's then about you as a person.
Yeah.
And whether you fit in the team and whether you are the best person for the job. And sometimes you won't get the job, and it's not necessarily anything to do with you. And it's sometimes for the best because you just wouldn't have fit in that particular environment, or may have not been quite right for that role. But I think if you can be authentic in yourself, that's really important, because then if you're putting yourself out there as you, then that's all you can do, isn't it? You can't do anything else. No,
it is. And you've got to, I think, when you're coming into a team, the person that's hiring you, thinking of, are they going to fit into my team? Like, are they? And if you show your personality in that, they can really judge off that, if that makes sense. Not in a bad way, but they can really be like, okay.
Well, it might be in a bad way.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it could be. But I think definitely showing your personality is something. It's something that people find quite hard, I think, because when you're prepping for an interview, you're thinking about, right, what questions are going to ask? This is how I'm going to answer it. You're not focusing on the way that you're speaking or anything like that. Yeah. But presenting yourself maybe is the best thing that you could do if you was going. Yeah, well, and some people will prep to make them more confident so that they do come across kind of in a more authentic way. So they are more relaxed because they know that they're prepped. Because sometimes you can be blindsided by a question that you didn't think. But I think you will always get that. Yeah. You'll always get a question that because how can you? You're not mind reading. Yeah. So yeah, I think the most it's just to put yourself forward as you, I think. Definitely. Cool. So, get into the gritty stuff now. I can't remember your next question. So, what do you think the strengths and weaknesses are of Gen Z? And you were Gen Z, aren't you? I am, yeah. What is Gen Z? Gen Z, I'm pretty sure, is 1997 to 2005 or something. Because my brother's not a Gen Z and he's 2007. Oh, really? What's he then? Is it Gen X or something? I don't know. No, that was the one before. Was it? No, that was the one. What are we? Millennials? Are we officially millennials? Gen Y. Gen Y. Yeah. I'm 37, so am I a millennial? I was born 1986. I'd just creep into millennial, don't I? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. We need research. Yeah. Check Google. So anyway. Anyway. Gen Zs. So your age group, I think. Yeah. You're very much in, kind of smack in the Gen Z age range, aren't you? Yeah, what 2000. I was born. I think so. Advantages that we have, just generally, is that what we're
Strengths and
strengths and
weaknesses.
So strengths, I think what we have is obviously with technology and things like that.
Yeah.
We grew up with it, so we've grew up to see it evolve.
Yeah.
I can tell from obviously younger siblings and just younger people I've grown up with that their first phone is an iPhone. They've not seen technology evolve. I know obviously millennials and things like that have obviously seen it evolve as well. But I think we just have the advantage of growing up with it and learning how it's evolving so we can evolve with it as well.
Yeah.
Was it disadvantages, the next one?
Weaknesses.
Weaknesses. Oh,
It's quite hard.
It is about offending people.
I think that's the.
I
I've
think
loaded
that's
the gun
one.
here.
Yeah. Weaknesses, I'd say, about us. Oh, God. I don't want to offend people. What if I do?
You can always cut it.
Okay. I think weaknesses that we have is a lot of people are very opinionated now. We say it quite a lot as we mean it. And which also leads to people getting offended very easily. Whereas I know when I was younger, you'd get comedy shows and things like that. There was no.
That's interesting.
Yeah, just no one got offended really. Well, they did, probably did. But now it's like you can say you've done it as a charity, and someone will take offence to that, and someone will turn it round and spin it on its head. And that's what I don't like about our generation.
And it was interesting the way that you said it's because people are opinionated.
Mm-hmm.
So not only are people more opinionated, but they're also more offended.
Yeah.
So the scale of almost like words and emotion and the impact of those words is profound.
Yeah.
However, we spend a lot less time actually talking to each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's because of the internet and social media.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a lot easier to go and call someone a twat on Twitter or X than it is to actually say that to their face.
Yeah.
Like it's there's a lot of cowards online, and I think that's maybe influenced that a generation, to be fair, and maybe created almost a culture within that age group.
Yeah, you can see that is obviously quite like a disadvantage and negative of Gen Zs, but then also that's something that's brought on like people talking about their mental health quite a lot. Yes. I watched the Sad Men documentary recently, and they were sat around a table basically. You obviously know the Sad Men, big YouTube group.
Yeah.
And they were sat around the table saying like how much hate they get online and things like that. But 7 men that like young kids can now look up to, and they're all talking about their mental health and what they've been through and things like that. That's such an advantage that's come from Gen Z. Like we talk about mental health, we talk about our lives. Like people are on YouTube vlogging inside their house with their families and things like that.
Yeah. It's
massive disadvantage, but also get an advantage out of it. It's I
agree. Like I think that's why I asked the question. It's not necessarily better or worse. It's just different.
Yeah.
Like there's just a different, and probably people who are 10 years younger than you right now are children or just growing up to teenagers. They will be again have a slightly different way of approaching life, I think.
They will, yeah.
And I think technology's had a big impact on that.
Yeah. It's like when I was growing up, we had, obviously YouTube came out and I don't know how old I'd have been when YouTube came out, maybe like 7 or something. And then I've grown up to have like people to look up to, like Zoella and all them that came up on YouTube. They'd like introduce you to makeup and this is how you do it. So your mum doesn't have to teach you. Yeah. You've got people teaching you how to do stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I think obviously with the scale of it now and what it's like now, don't know what children will be like when they're my age that are 7 now, but
my kids are 2 and 5. Yeah. And Ellis now especially would much prefer to watch YouTube because he can just indulge in whatever he likes.
Yeah.
Like he loves Minecraft at the moment, so obviously he just wants to watch videos about Minecraft.
Yeah.
And like I would try and put a film on or something like that of like that I think is really great. And he's like, Dad, oh God, and I can just hear my own father
Yeah.
telling me the same thing as I did when I was watching something that he didn't like on
Yeah.
TV. So,
But
it
the
just
amount of
changes.
things that they could like, they could get addicted to one topic, for example, Minecraft. Go
Yeah.
onto YouTube and find so many different
Oh,
videos
yeah, yeah.
about
And it's
Minecraft
amazing.
now.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
Whereas when I was younger, it's like I wanted to watch, I don't know, Wizards of Waverly Place, and I have to wait till next week for the next episode to come out.
Yeah.
It's like binge watching now as well on Netflix.
No, it's interesting that.
Yeah.
So, last question.
Is that for me or
It's from you.
from me? Let's have a look.
Oh no, I just spilled water down me.
Oh no. How do you anticipate the future of remote work evolving over the next decade?
Nice, thanks for that.
That's all right.
Throwing me to the wolves. So I think COVID obviously rapidly, dramatically sped up the remote working kind of movement, I would say.
Yeah.
And that has had loads of benefits, and I do genuinely on the Western office goers, I think it has really improved the attitudes towards flexibility and kind of just forced us to do it, and we've kind of tested it
Yeah.
during COVID, and then it's kind of like, actually it works all right.
Yeah.
I think a couple of things with it. Yeah, I've just got to be careful kind of what I say. I don't really want to offend people, but I think in a marketing office, I think my opinion is that it is better to have those off the cuff conversations.
Yeah.
It's just quicker, more
Yeah.
dynamic, and more natural.
Yeah.
And personally, being very much a people person, I want to come into the office and I want to talk to people.
Yeah.
I don't want to be working. I don't want to drop my kids off at school or something, then go home and sit in the same place. It's just for me that is depressing.
Yeah.
I want to go and I want to talk to my colleagues because I like coming into work. That's something that I really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
I love going back home, but I love going to work as well. So my work-life balance, I feel like, is nice now.
Yeah.
I've worked hard to get to that.
Yeah.
Especially running a business, you pushed and pulled in different directions.
Yeah.
I think fully remote is challenging,
Yeah.
and I think although there is this kind of there's a bit of an attitude where it's like, well, we should be able to work remotely. Like it's what the employee wants, but it's not always what kind of you want. It's kind of what works.
Yeah.
And I think the majority of people work really well from remotely, on my experience, but some people don't.
No.
And that's not necessarily their fault. They just they need more structure.
Yeah.
And they just don't do that much at home.
Yeah.
And I think
I get
that is a reality. Like I've seen it. And
Yeah.
I've talked to other people, and I know that does exist.
Yeah.
It's not like when everyone works at home, everyone's working like that.
I feel like online that's such like a big thing where people are like, oh, it's great to work from home, and that's it, full stop.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
some people with like, I don't know, ADHD and things like that, they can't physically work from home all the time, and
Yeah.
leaving people on their own, working day in, day out at home, can be very lonely and lead to certain things. And I think it's very naive to think, oh, everybody wants to work from home. It's so great all the time. And I think we saw, like, for example, last week we was doing the campaign for hiring, and I had a certain idea, but I wasn't sure on how. And then me and Rachel was having a conversation, and we just got things flowing. And then the post did real well. If we was both working from home and I had this idea, that wouldn't have come to life at all.
No.
It would not have come to life.
That
whereas
conversation happened naturally. Then
in the
you
office,
booked
yeah.
it in, then you did it.
And we did it,
Yeah,
and it was
yeah.
great. It turned out great.
Yeah.
So working from home, it just wouldn't be that collaborative at all. So
It's the collaboration.
yeah,
And I get it. So for some people it's a necessity because of their circumstances. And fine.
yeah,
But it's not a hard and fast, yes, this works, yes, it
yeah.
doesn't.
It's not for everyone.
There are negatives and there are positives, and I'm sure a lot of people are shouting at me right now going,
Yeah.
no, you're wrong.
We're just giving our opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Going full Gen Z.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me on again.
Well, you didn't have to. You only had to move like just from your chair.
Literally
there,
a
so, yeah,
centimetre.
yeah. Great. Thank you.